In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at Darth Vader for the Black Series 3 3/4 inch collection. This was released back in 2013, and he was part of the first wave. I forget specifically which number he was. I know I know he was not figure number 1 or 2. I think he may have been like 5 or 6 or 7, one of those numbers. But to this day, I think this is my favorite 3 3/4 inch Darth Vader figure. Even better than the newer ones we're getting. I think the helmet sculpt is by far the most accurate for Darth Vader. Articulation, he's definitely not as articulated as the newer ones that we're getting. But does Darth Vader really need to be this superposable action figure? I mean, he's very cumbersome as it is, and you know, he can only do so much being heavily robotic. So I think the articulation he has is good enough for him. And it was a very neat action figure at the time, and he has a lot of accessories that we never really saw with any other Vader figure over the years. He's reutilizing a lot of parts from previous Vaders that we got in the past, mainly in the TVC line and even in the Legacy collection to an extent. But still, it has a certain amount of newness to him, I think, compared to those figures that we got. And even to this day, if you ask me personally, I think he's still a great contender for best Vader, even with my bias aside. He's definitely there's definitely a strong case in his favor. I'll say that. So I think he was originally supposed to be in the TVC line. I know a lot of those original action figures in the Black Series 3 3/4 inch line were supposed to be in TVC, like the Arena Duel Padme and then Padawan Anakin, which we did eventually get. And there's so many others as well. Mara Jade, maybe even Plagueis. I'm not sure if he was supposed to be slotted in TVC at the time. But I know many of those action figures were. So, like I said, I got this back in 2013. Funny story I'll tell about this. So I originally got the action figure at a local grocery store. And then I get it home, I open it up, and he had this really big spot on the side of his helmet. And at the time, I didn't really have a definitive Vader. All I had was the Revenge of the Sith Vader that from 2005. And it bothered me to no end at the time. I was like, oh man, I finally got a definitive Darth Vader, and he's got this really big dent on the side of his head, and it was infuriating. And it was something that you couldn't see in the package until you opened it. And you know, if you recall the Black Series packaging at the time, it didn't stay on the card too well, so it was something that even if you opened it, you could easily put it back together and it'd be like brand new. So I took it back to the store, and the grocery store I got it from didn't have it. So then I went to Kmart actually, and they had one, and I exchanged it for that. When I returned it though, it pretty much looked like a brand new figure. I'm sure some people, it may not really bother them. Obviously it didn't, because not too long after I returned it, somebody else probably bought it, because I never really saw it again at Kmart after that. But I did an exchange, so this one actually came from Kmart. I'm sure plenty of you have done that every now and then, where you get an action figure, you open it up, and he's got like this massive dent in him, and then you do an even exchange of that. Or I may have taken it back to the grocery store actually, and then went over to Kmart and got this one. I forget how I did it. It's been, what, 10 years now? But this particular one came from Kmart. But we'll just go ahead and take a closer look at this guy. So he is specifically based upon his appearance in Empire Strikes Back. He is a very scene-specific Vader, mainly during that scene where he says, "We'd be honored if you join us." So like I said, I think that the helmet sculpt is spot on. It's perfect. The proportions are right. The angles are right. The paint detailing is nice. It has that glossy finish. And it even has all the correct paint in the right areas, mainly around the respirator there with the silver markings. And it's just a very nice Vader helmet. For the rest of his body, it's pretty standard compared to what we got for most Vaders at the time. Nothing really too unique about that. As far as the control panel here, I think it's painted a little bit different. I'm actually looking at some of the other Vaders I have right now, and they are painted a little bit different. Mostly with the silver here. This one has a lot more silver on the panel there compared to most. As far as his panels on his belt here, they look pretty much about the same as the rest of the Vaders. He does have his silver chain there, which looks pretty good. I think it kind of adds to Vader. Sometimes I think he looks kind of odd without it. And this one has a little bit of a glossy look to it as well, or a shiny look. It does have the armor there. And for his shoulder armor, it's just all black instead of being completely the silver color, which I would have to go back and check, but I think that's pretty much accurate. And for his legs here, pretty much what you would expect. Has a nice leathery look to it. And he has his boots, which look pretty glossy as well. Then he has his robes, which are tucked in behind his belt here and under his armor. And he has a nice long cape. So in terms of the articulation, he's super articulated and can pretty much pose in any way you'd want him. He does have a swivel at the neck, which for Vader, it never really bothered me. In fact, I think in most cases with a ball hinged Vader head, it never really worked out too well. The Vader that came out a little bit later in this particular Black Series line, it constantly popped off, and I'll be reviewing him here pretty soon actually, and we'll go over that, what I mean by that. But swivel head for Vader, I think is perfectly fine. Then hinge at shoulders, elbows, swivel forearms, basically. He does have a swivel waist, but you're not really going to get a lot of motion out of that because of his robes. You don't really want to risk ripping it or anything like that. He does have the swivel hips, and then hinged knees and hinged ankles. Pretty much all the articulation you ask for. So for accessories, this Vader comes with a lot of accessories, actually. So he has a standard lightsaber, not a removable blade, and this one doesn't have a extra unignited hilt that you can attach on the belt or anything like that. And there's no hole on the belt. Up till now, I think we've only gotten, 2 or 3 Vaders that actually has a lightsaber you can clip to his belt. And not too many. But it's pretty nicely painted. Pretty basic. Could be a little bit bigger though for his hilt, but it's not bad. Nice red blade though. Then we have the main draw about this action figure. So like I said, this is very scene specific. And you have this hand here, which you can see has a hole in it. And it's opened up. And then you have this blast effect here, which is to reenact that scene where Han Solo is shooting at Vader. And it does have certain grooves in it, so it specifically fits on the hand a certain way. As you can see, it has that blast effect there. You can reenact that scene like so. I did bring Han Solo out, so we'll see how he looks. Something like that. It's a pretty good scene to reenact. But in case you didn't have a Han Solo or you were missing his blaster, he did come with an extra one. I'm pretty sure this is the Han Solo blaster he came with. And it specifically had the brown pistol grip. Well, he did come with an extra blaster, though, for Vader. which, I mean, there is a specific purpose to it. So he has this extra hand, which is more of a, slightly of a gripped hand. And you're supposed to be able to put that pistol in his hand, which is much easier to hold if you have Vader with the hand on him. Luckily, it's easy enough to pop their hands off. It's really no problem. Let's see here. Yeah. Not too bad. I've never really had any problems with this getting stuck or anything. So then, of course, during that scene, Vader force pulls Han's blaster out of his hand and does something like that. Then he tells the gang that he'd be honored if they would join him. Other than that, that's all the accessories he does come with, which are very unique. As far as I know, no other Vader action figure in the history of Hasbro Star Wars has ever had any accessories like this. And you can get them in a nice pose. So I just checked to make sure that was the right Han Solo blaster, and it indeed is. And also, this is figure number 6. So I was within the ballpark. But yeah, that's all the accessories he comes with. Pretty good for Vader. Oftentimes when Hasbro does a Darth Vader figure, they'll just do a lightsaber, and that's really about it. Maybe an extra hand or an extra hilt or something like that. So I think we got a pretty good value back in the day. Action figures were still only $9.99 at this time, which was only 10 years ago, which is incredible. Something like that. But yeah, definitely a great Vader for dioramas if you're into that type of thing. So would I recommend this Darth Vader for your collection? I totally would. I'm not really sure what the asking prices are for this one these days. It's been a long time since I've looked at any, and I don't really see any. When I'm just browsing the internet for Vaders, I never really come across any listings for him. I'm sure there's plenty out there, but you just have to do some digging, like type in Black Series Darth Vader number 6, 3 3/4 inch, things like that. But I can't imagine he'd be too much, but I don't know, it's hard to say. I know the other Black Series Vader in the same line was much more expensive over the years. But it's been a while since I've checked on that one as well, so who knows, prices fluctuate. And now that we got more Vaders to choose from, in particular Vaders that are in pretty much direct competition with it, it's really hard to say. But it's worth checking out, and yeah, it's even if you had to pay a little bit more for this, I still think it's well worth the price. If it was like in the $25-$30 range, this Vader is totally worth it. You're basically paying that now for the newer TVC action figures, so a little bit more for something that's really good with the extra accessories here, I think is worth it. There is one more thing I'll show before we wrap up the videos. I did want to do a helmet comparison here with the newer TVC Vader. Did review this one on the channel about a year ago at this point. And here they are side by side. So this Vader's helmet is really good, but something about this one just looks more intimidating to me. It looks more, I look at it and it's like, yes, this looks exactly like Vader. In some ways, it's not really fair to compare the two because this is supposed to be more of a New Hope-oriented Vader helmet, and it's not asymmetrical, I don't think. And the Empire Strikes Back one is a little bit different. Personally, I think they're in direct competition with one another. But yeah, overall, highly recommended Vader. If you only had one Vader for your collection and this was the one you wanted to get, I think you're doing fine with just having this one. For the longest time, this was my definitive Vader, and in some ways I think it still is. And I think it's going to hold up for many years to come, quite frankly. But anyways, that concludes this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for plenty more reviews in the future. There will always be lots more to come. If you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I always greatly appreciate all your support. And check out some of the links in the description if you have not done so already. As always, thanks for watching.